My name is Jason Silva, and I've been invited to try to bring together a lot of these themes we've been exploring. And I guess the first thing I'd like to do is offer a incredible note of gratitude to Mr. Jamie Wheel, my very, very dear friend, for his brilliant mapping of this experience, for structuring this experience for us. The wonderful reflection about the Academy and taking inspiration from the symposium where we discuss ideas, and the gymnasium where we get in our bodies, and the mysterium where we flirt with the infinite. It's a very, very real thing that I will be trying to map for you today, and trying to kind of close out and offer a synthesis of the last couple of days. I'm also very, very moved by the through line that Jamie has brought to us of the pre-tragic, the tragic, and the post-tragic. In reflecting upon this, I've spent a large part of my career being a celebrator of big ideas, being a cheerleader for human progress, being a techno-optimist, and again, a celebrator of our unique capacity to overcome and transcend our boundaries. But as I've listened to Jamie's reflections about, again, this meta-pattern of the pre-tragic, the tragic, and the post-tragic, I realize, firstly, that yes, I'm very familiar with the pre-tragic. I miss it. There are times when I want to curl up and return to the Garden of Eden, to be a child at play again. I crave that kind of innocence. I crave that kind of wholeness, but you can't go backwards. And then in reflecting upon the tragic, well, that spoke very near and dear to my solar plexus, I'm sorry to say. Fear and anxiety and the tragedy of the human condition has been a very intimate bedfellow for me. I think the first rupture was the divorce of my parents, the first time I felt my wholeness fractured in some way or another, the first time a real sense of uncertainty kicked into being, a kind of growing up faster than I wanted to. And perhaps the second big rupture was watching my entire country collapse. I grew up in Venezuela, which used to be an incredibly prosperous nation, and I literally witnessed the slow and then suddenly and all at once decay of an entire country, a total fracturing of home, And I was lucky enough to leave Venezuela when I went for university, but, my dad got left behind. So a part of my psyche was all too aware that my dad, who was a part of me and his entire world, had been crushed, had been reduced. And that was eating, I think, at me in a way that caused me to have some kind of undiagnosed PTSD. I mean, anxiety, fear, despair, existential dread, these have been bedfellows in my life. And the irony, in turn, is coming to realize perhaps that this compulsion towards the creative arts, this compulsion towards self-expression, this compulsion to lean into the good, the true, and the beautiful has been a coping mechanism. And that, in fact, this celebration of human progress that has been my career is actually my post-tragic. It is this decision, this deliberate decision to affirm life in spite of its tragedy. And I know the tragedy all too well. My first viral video was called Existential Bummer, and it was about the work of Ernest Becker, the psychoanalyst who distilled the origin, the worm at the core of human neurosis, which is the unbearable and intolerable awareness of our mortality and how it eats away at our dreams and longings, that no matter who we love and how deeply we love and how deeply we feel, in the end we disappear forever. The explicit awareness that you're a breathing piece of defecating meat destined to die and ultimately potentially no more significant than a lizard or a potato, as Sheldon Solomon said, is not especially uplifting. And again, so I'm very aware of the tragic, and in some ways the tragic would have killed me if it weren't for my art, if it weren't for being able to tap into these rhapsodic mind-body states, as Jamie exquisitely describes them, where action and awareness merge, where we become one with everything. It comes through us, but not from us, and though it is with us, it belongs not to us. And what a wonderful sensation that is. And so here I am standing in front of you trying to engender radical hope. So I've come up with my own, I guess, step by step, how Jason gets to radical hope, and perhaps to invite you to consider the ways in which these steps might get you back to radical hope. Again, it's not denying the tragic, and it's not even surrendering our capacity to connect with some of that joy and innocence of the pre-tragic, because our inner child still lives inside of us, that kind of effervescence, that kind of awe and wonder. We can still reconnect with that, I think. I know I do on a regular basis. So that's something I think important to hold in mind. So how do we get to radical hope? And I've prepared some video content, actually, because that's my favorite means of expression, to combine imagery, to combine visionary art, to combine words, to combine music, to engender an experience that is ineffable. Because the pathway to radical hope is going to take a series of ineffable moments of transformation that we cannot put into language, that we cannot describe in rational discourse. It's like Alain de Botton, he had this wonderful line. He said, a journalist or a scientist may be more accurate in describing the details of an event or a phenomenon than a poet, but a poet may nevertheless reveal truth of a deeper sort beyond the literal grid, what the Greeks call katalepsis, a truth from which nothing can dislodge us. So how do we get to this katalepsis? How do we awaken the mind's attention from the lethargy of custom and the film of familiarity and redirect it towards the wonders of existence? Well, the first step before we get to radical hope is radical healing. So radical healing is important, as Jamie once said in his wonderful TED Talk, From Altered States to Altered Traits. How might we render ourselves whole, and how might we render ourselves holy? So it begins with radical healing, and this is where the psychedelic revolution potentially is so interesting, allowing us to experience psychological death and unity and resurrection and compress that experience in 5 hours of space-time to bring us back to life. That's really exciting, considering that people with treatment-resistant depression, anxiety, OCD often are given a single session with substances like MDMA or psilocybin and completely find relief from their afflictions. Like, what a magical thing this is. And in a world where, according to the World Health Organization, more people are dying by suicide than are dying from natural disasters and armed conflict combined, we need now more than ever, I think, this radical healing. So psychedelics are definitely one approach. I think another approach are ecstatic gatherings. We also talked about this during this conference. Jamie led a wonderful panel about this. And perhaps the epitome of ecstatic gatherings, aside from Harvest, is Burning Man, as Eric Davis described it, a demolition derby of reality constructs colliding on a parched void. It's a wild place, hard to map in rational language, but a place in which we are often brought back to life. There's a great essay, also written by Jamie, called The Tale of Three Cities, where he cites brilliant thinkers who say things like, you've got to go there to know there, and if you can name the way, that's not the way. So again, a lot of this healing happens in ineffable spaces. Maybe when you're doing apnea underwater on a session with Rodo, learning to hold your breath and encountering the mysterium below the surface of the sea. In any case, I've prepared a video about what radical healing looks like, feels like, when it's instantiated, when it occurs to us. And so I'd like to show you this first video on radical healing, and then we'll go through the next two steps, which are radical wonder, radical technology, and finally radical hope. So let's start with the first video, please.
Transformational festivals, well, they're very in vogue these days. People are hungry for transformation, but what exactly does transformation feel like? What is the lived experience, if we had to break it down, that people are after in these transformational festivals? Well, people are basically looking to have their jadedness violated. They're looking for experiences that violate their expectations and presuppositions. They're looking to be stopped in their track. Transformational festivals are about giving people salience. We call this the economy of experience. The experience economy. There's a whole economy being forged around the increasing psychic appetite for entrainment, for heightened presence, for a lived experience that returns a virginal noticing to the sensate world, or what Michael Pollan calls a sense of first sight, unencumbered by knowingness. You're alive and engaged and entrained in a world you forgot was possible, and in a way you forgot was possible. There's a heightened aliveness. You know, a place like Burning Man perhaps is the epitome in this experience economy. Eric Davis described it as a demolition derby of reality constructs colliding in a parched void. It's the juxtaposition, the intensity of juxtaposition in the barren landscape with works of art that take your breath away but also speak to you. Everything is making a statement, and everything prompts you into a world of contemplation, and it's Willy Wonka and Alice in Wonderland all at once meets Blade Runner. And it's like something happens that you're just more present to the adventure, and the whole thing unfolds on a bicycle, which further hurls you into the magical bike ride psychedelic undertone of a child at play exploring a new world, and you got your buddies with you, and it's like, where are we going and what's going to happen? And I'm so in this moment, I'm so alive in this moment. People feel more connected, more in the here and now, in the thralls of play and wonder and entrainment and flow. And you know, daily life for so many just pales in comparison. We go through the motions of the everyday, unengaged, not present, not wanting to be there, you know, resigned to the futility of our days, bored, restless. The mental health crisis, of course, stems from this, stuck in ruminative loops. It's like we're not in the this, we're not in the expanded presence, the heightened qualitative intensity of the lived experience, the felt reality of direct experience. We're just not in it most of the time. And so we go to these transformational festivals to blow our minds and come to our senses and return to just a kind of aliveness. We're just talking about aliveness. It's no great insight. It's no great psychedelic, schizophrenic realization. There's no real manic geometry at the end of the day. We're just talking about presence. We're just talking about play. We're just talking about laughter. We're just talking about joy. We're just talking about entrainment. We're just talking about being there and loving it. Ultimately, that's what it's about, man. I try to gift myself these states of rapture and play in my ordinary life. I try to bring back some of those insights, some of those protocols and procedures, the way my friend Jamie Daves describes them, a knobs and levers approach to tweaking our own lived experience to bring more play into it. Like drawing a line in the sand and creating a theatrical space where there can be play and there can be wonder, and you can be in the throngs of the Burning Man all over again, because the Burning Man is a state of being, a place we can pay visitation to. What is that line from The Never-Ending Story? Make believe I'm everywhere, hidden in the lines. There upon a rainbow is the answer to the never-ending story. Oh, man. Make believe I'm everywhere, hidden in the lines. There upon the pages is the answer to a never-ending story. So, in the end, friends, that's what it's about. Seeing if we can bring ourselves back to life, unleash the free and brave, reckless gods that live inside of us, lose ourselves and find ourselves and expand ourselves and explore ourselves and pickle ourselves and see the spaces there are to unleash and embody. So that's it, and that's that. And as usual, thanks for listening. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
So hopefully that pointed the way. Maybe you saw yourself reflected in that feeling or in an image or in a moment, in a musical moment that transpired during that video where you said, aha, recognition. As Jamie says, I remember what I forgot. That's the intent. And so before we get to radical hope, we have to radically heal. That's very important. And once we radically heal, I think what is born, at least for me, is radical wonder, radical awe. I call my videos shots of awe. My friend Dacker Kelter at the Greater Good Science Center in Berkeley, he studies awe and wonder. And he describes awe as an experience of such perceptual vastness, such perceptual expansion, that your mental models of the world, the been theres and seen that's of the adult mind, your jadedness and cynicism and arrogance, the part of you that thinks you've seen it all before, that whole thing is obliterated in the face of something that simply exceeds your maps. And sometimes it's got to be transgressive. It's got to be violating. It's got to stop you in your tracks. But when it does, man, those experiences of awe and wonder, man, well, you're twice born. Michael Pollan, who I love very much, has written exquisitely about the aura of profundity that bathes your ordinary perceptions when you are in a state of radical wonder. He talks about a virginal noticing of the sensate world. He talks about a sense of first sight, unencumbered by knowingness. How wonderful to see things for the first time all over again. There's a great artist, I forget his name, who said, in order to see something, you have to forget the name of the thing you are seeing. Can we get back to that place? Can we open up a distance, if temporarily, where we can just perceive before it collapses into the maps of knowing, where we can just experience something virginally? And then time becomes dilated. There's a guy called David Lenson. He perfectly summarizes what this feels like when you're in a state of radical wonder, how I feel when I'm doing some free diving or some snorkeling, perhaps assisted by some cannabis. But the idea is that what David Lenson calls strict chronometry, right? Life by the clock, tick-tock, mechanized cognition, strict chronometry, chronos, gives way to what he calls more fluid and provisional matrices. Time becomes liquid. You move from chronos to kairos, from mechanized cognition to poetic consciousness. The sunset that lasts forever, that kiss that never ends, that song that brings you home. This is awe, and this is wonder. And this is, I think, what we find potentially in places like this, in gatherings like Burning Man. And hopefully that's something that has landed for you. So that's the first step. We radically heal, then we radically awaken our awe and wonder. And then what happens? And then we get to work. And then we deploy radical technology. You guys remember the wonderful talk by Tristan Harris. He also talked about Edward O. Wilson. We have Paleolithic brains, medieval laws, and godlike technology, and this is a problem. Or Daniel Schmachtenberger, who reminds us, if we have the power of gods, we need the wisdom of gods and the prudence of gods. But if we acquire some of this wisdom through that radical healing, right, that radical play, that radical wonder, man, we bring so much more to our tools and technologies, right? Steve Jobs talked about how his psychedelic experiences informed his view of technology. And in the end, the etymology of the word psychedelic means to manifest the mind. So that's what we do at our best with our tools and technologies. We actualize the human imagination. Our tools and technologies literalize the fact that the imagination is literalizing its own instantiation, right? That's what's happening. There's a guy called David Deutsch. He wrote a book called The Fabric of Reality and a book called The Beginning of Infinity. He's got a great TED Talk called Chemical Scum That Dream of Distant Quasars. And it's a wonderful account, in some ways, like inverting this idea that we are nothing, or that we are just a cancer on this planet, or that we are chemical scum suspended in a sunbeam. We may be that, but we are also chemical scum that dream of distant quasars. He talks about how in the early universe, what we can see when we look into space with our marvelous space telescopes, the early universe was one where big, dumb things affect small, insignificant things. Big star systems and black holes, very little intelligence, just big, dumb things affecting small, insignificant things. Until we got to life. All of a sudden, something like photosynthesis, this small little chemical process, could change the entire surface of a whole planetary body. So life became the first time where small things could affect big things. And when you get to us, actual Imagineers with the capacity to actualize our imagination, concretize our imagination, well, all of a sudden you're looking potentially at these tiny little beings standing on this planet, potentially harnessing stars for energy one day. And who knows? Perhaps we are panspermia, right? Perhaps we are the thing that will seed the universe with intelligence and creativity. That's the kind of radical technology I'm interested in. That's the kind of singularity that I'm interested in. That's the kind of omega point that I'm interested in. That's the kind of idea of the technium, of technology as the seventh kingdom of life that Kevin Kelly talks about, that I'm interested in. And so this next video was done as a co-production between biological and non-biological intelligence. It's a marriage, it's a hybrid of me and AI dancing together. It's a kind of liquid imagination engaging us to entertain a conversation about the implications of our coupling with AI. So it's pretty meta. Enjoy the next video.
Do androids dream of electric sheep? I've always loved the title of that story by Philip K. Dick, and it feels ever more prescient today. Do androids dream of electric sheep? We ask ourselves this question as we increasingly grapple with a world of synthetic intelligence, where more and more of our interactions are happening with algorithms that seem to exhibit some of the qualities of awareness, some of the qualities of sentience. It's the dawn of artificial intelligence. It's the dawn of a kind of intelligence explosion. And as we grapple with the philosophical issues raised by this encounter with a new kind of mysterium tremendum, a new kind of synthetic mysterium tremendum, we are having to ask deep questions about what it means to have a psyche, what it means to have an inner world, what it means to have theory of mind, what it means to have an inner psychology. And so, of course, Philip K. Dick was ahead of his time when he asked the question, do androids dream of electric sheep? You know, when Eric Davis wrote about the spiritual cyborg in his book Technosis, he wrestled with this very same thing. We are the spiritual cyborg. We are the thing that is a hybrid of biological and non-biological intelligence. We create second skins and scaffoldings. We are increasingly merging with our tools and technologies, but now we are spawning a technology that talks back. Now we are spawning a kind of artificial personhood, and we're interacting and engaging in a feedback loop with that artificial personhood. And so again, we should ask this question. We should get into a platonic conversation about what this means and where we're heading as we increasingly wonder, do androids dream of electric sheep? Do androids dream of electric sheep?
So there you go, something to consider. Oh, thanks, guys. I know I'm kind of going all over the place, but I'm trying to synthesize everything we've been through in the last 3 days. So to finish off, right, we've gone to radical healing, and we've gone to radical wonder, and we've looked at radical technology. And all of those things coupled together, for me at least, fill me with radical hope. They fill me with radical hope. I have also a very personal reason to be currently bathed in the sensation of radical hope, and it has to do with that comment I said earlier about when I first left Venezuela and how my dad stayed behind. And over the last couple of years, me and my brother got my father Spanish citizenship, and we're buying him a house in Mallorca so he can hike the mountains. And in some, yeah, and it's really interesting for me how a lot of the feeling of not feeling safe in my body, and a lot of the sensation of just like living with anxiety as a kind of thing that was, again, a bedfellow of mine, seems to be making a switch. Something about getting to be a little boy, seeing his father standing tall again, is feeling like it's repairing the past in some kind of way. And it has filled me very personally with a sense of radical hope. And I know the songs of despair are at bay. So anyway, I'm going to close out with a final video, again, done after my conversations with Jamie, specifically inspired to show you guys this at this event. This is the anthem, my anthem on radical hope. And it was recorded, no script, single take, right after a 3-hour free diving session And then we went to some mangroves, and I was like, okay, I'm ready. Let's do this. And this is the result. So enjoy the radical hope. Cheers.
Friends, the challenge that we face is one of existential gravity. If we don't wake up and if we don't show up, we're potentially in a very real path to self-destruction. The tragedy isn't just that it would be the end of us. The tragedy would be that it would be the end to our awareness and our relationship with the mystery. The mystery is that which exists. The mystery is that which is alive. The mystery is that which we can behold, but only if we develop ecological consciousness, only if we wake up to the sacredness, to the miracle, to the mystery. This doesn't mean to dismiss science in favor of superstition. It means to dismiss the erasure of the mystery that has been the consequence of modernity. See, I love scientific progress. I love technological scaffoldings. I love to put on a scuba snorkeling mask and watch the way it opens up a new world, a fresh green breast of a new reality. A technological scaffolding that becomes nothing less than an ontological awakening and a forceful reckoning with what is, forcing me to contemplate the universe on a scale just shy of the infinite. See, tools and technologies should aid us in our exploration. They should aid us in the annihilation of our cynicism and our jadedness. Our technological scaffoldings, like great songs, should act as portals to expansion, portals to transubstantiation. What if we used our tools and technologies in a shamanic way, in a cyberdelic way, as ecstatic technicians of the sacred? We resacralize our interfacing with the world using ever greater tools that expand the repository of our perception and hurl us into spaces and places of quaking, annihilating glory. We become like audience members in the film Interstellar as Chris Nolan slingshots us into the numinous and into the place that has no name and into the place that must not be spoken. But you see, when you look into the abyss also looks into you. You become what you behold, and it is precisely in this ego death, in this lostness, where we lose track of our boundaries, that suddenly we become something more. And it re-enchants the world, and it reawakens our why, and it makes us want to lean into the mystery with humility, but also courage. We are reborn and we are remade, and we see ourselves in communion and affinity with the sheer miraculousness of existence, like snorkeling through a coral reef and watching the glistening iridescence as the light beams from the sun shine through the turquoise water in the technicolor psychedelic landscape, the worlds upon worlds of marine life and corals, and you are wowed by the experience. All of your perceptual maps are obliterated. An experience of such perceptual expansion, it is akin to the divine, but it also engages the desire to protect and live in harmony with said mystery. And it is from this expansion that can come a new ecological awareness, a new ecological consciousness, where we become star beings and we become scientists and psychonauts, remade and defined by awe. We become awe beings, star beings, who snorkel and scuba dive and explore the universe and marvel at the ecosystems and probe the mysteries of the rainforest and find new medicines and seed the environment and grow the environment and steward the environment and protect the environment and have divine encounters with the mysterium tremendum that dwells embedded in the miracle of the environment. And my goodness gracious friends, this is what Stuart Brand, fueled by an acid trip and a moment of clarity, wanted to do when he put a photo, the first photo taken of Earth from space, and created the cover of the whole Earth catalog. It was the hope, as was the hope of many astronauts, once seeing the big picture, that we would be jolted into awakening and realize that we are as gods and might as well get good at it, friends. Move past our Paleolithic brains, transcend our medieval laws, and deploy our godlike technologies and technological scaffoldings to stare into the sun and awe. And that's how we solve both the climate crisis and the consciousness crisis. And that is how we turn our passing illuminations into abiding light. And that is how we heal ourselves. And that is how we find ourselves. And that is how we explore the reality of ourselves. And that's how we stop trying to make art and we become art. I think that this is what ultimately all of it is about. All of our artistry, all of our scientific exploration, all of our education, all of our inclination to make order and orient our lives around something that matters. It is about this reframing of our relationship with reality. Carl Sagan said, "We are a way for the cosmos to know itself." Jodie Foster as Ellie Arroway in the movie Contact, when she goes through the wormhole and beholds the celestial event, she says they should have sent a poet, and she said, "I had no idea. I had no idea. I had no idea. I had no idea. I had no idea. We had no idea." But there is hope for us yet to come into alignment, to kill the ego, to wake up to our destiny and rise up to the occasion and drop into our training and make of our lives a work of art, make of this thing a fucking masterpiece. And that's it. And that's that. And that's it. And that's that. So, we doing this or what? Let's do this. If not us, who? If not now, when?
Thank you so much, guys. As you can see, I was very inspired. I appreciate you guys receiving that. Oh, you guys are beautiful. Oh, man. Oh, you're sweet. Well, thank you.